Hello, I'm Sarah Entsminger, and I live and work in Northern Virginia. Next slide. My artwork, Night Music on the Water, was juried into the Musica exhibition. My work is primarily landscape-based, and as I thought about the concept of music and the importance of music in our lives, my mind immediately went to the sounds of nature. Mother Nature provides music daily, from streams slipping over rocks, animals calling to each other, ocean waves crashing, and the leaves of trees whispering in the breeze. So I continued to think about music and nature's music. My thoughts were not of sweet bird songs, but rather dramatic storm sounds. For some reason, my memories of storms are usually of those that occurred at night. Soft rain and sunlight does not seem to stand out in my memories in quite the same way. Storms are one of nature's grandest melodies, cracks of lightning, low rumbles of thunder building to loud booms like timpani drums. Clouds, turbulent water, and waving grasses, all overlaid with sheets of rain, continue to create the feeling of a dramatic storm passing through this piece. I'll describe the process I use to create night music and many of my other pieces as we look through these slides. Next, please. This is a photograph that I took at Morven Park and edited it to create the feeling of emotion that I look for in the places that I've visited. I've always been interested in different art mediums, although today I tend to limit my work to textile art, pastel painting, and photography. Regardless of which medium is being used, personal photographs and memories inform my work. My photographs include elements of texture, color, line, and other details of nature. Sometimes I will include ideas from several different photographs within a single artwork. My work is about trying to recreate feelings and emotions that are related to place. Our memories of place are complicated, colored by experiences and the people associated with those places. But most of my work is landscape-based because I find the natural world to be healing. It also calms and centers me. Next, please. I primarily use hand-dyed fabrics in my work. Because of significant respiratory issues, I do not dye my own fabric, but instead source from other talented artists. Hand-dyed fabrics are really one of a kind. Those differences are created by the individual artists, their process, and their particular choice of pigments and dyes. A single piece of hand-dyed fabric may have many different color and tone changes across the surface of the fabric. Do you remember that game we played as children, trying to describe the shapes that we could see in the clouds? Well, that's exactly how I look at fabrics. Can I see any images or feelings of place? If a piece of fabric speaks to me, I buy it regardless of whether I have a specific project in mind or not, as that particular piece of hand-dyed fabric will most likely never come through my hands again. Next, please. This piece is called West Bay Sunrise. I have learned that reducing the elements of an image down to the essentials necessary to create a sense of place allows me to make work that leaves room for the viewer to experience the work as a reflection of their own memories of place. Most often, my work consists of sky, water, and land with a clear horizon line. I also often feature changes in weather in my work. Next, please. My studio is in my home. I am fortunate to have space for work tables, 2 at counter height and 2 at desk height. I move between the work tables, the design wall, and my sewing machine. And while that sounds a bit like the magic triangle that kitchen designers talk about, it does work. Wonderful natural light streams in through the windows, keeping me connected to the landscape outside. I keep my fabrics in ventilated bins in the closet, separated by color. Keeping my fabrics out of the workspace, except for specific projects under production, allows me to concentrate without the siren's call of color distracting me. Next, please. This piece is Summer at North Graham Marsh. I often begin a piece with 1 or 2 fabrics, used alone or pieced together to create the base layer. I work on a piece while it is on the design wall, or more often taking it down, working on the tables, moving between the tables. I just have to keep an eye out for the iron cord, which never seems to be where it should. As I work, I'm continually adding other bits of fabric or painting in order to achieve the effect that I want. At many different stages, I stop and photograph my progress. By looking at the photo, I can tell whether different elements are working together, if something important is missing, or if it's just becoming a hot mess. The camera becomes a non-partial observer and helps my process. Next, please. Fabric has been used as a substrate by artists for centuries. After all, canvas is fabric. I don't begin by mounting my fabric on stretcher bars like many painters, as that removes much of the versatility that's inherent in being able to manipulate the fabric throughout the creation of the artwork. The weave of the fabric will accept a wide variety of fine art mediums. And I've experimented with many, and I continue with each new product that comes to the market. I keep most of my art supplies in my studio, so the choices are easily accessible. Most often art supplies used include acrylic paint, Japanese inks, acrylic inks, colored pencils, wax pastel, or fine-tipped markers. My favorite is probably colored pencil, particularly the soft pigments by Prismacolor that seem to sink into the weave of the fabric rather than sitting on the top, which is also one of the best qualities of the translucent inks as well. Next, please. Rough water is an example of a single fabric as the base layer with an image built on the top of that layer. I don't like to draft patterns for specific pieces that are needed. Creating patterns seems to slow me down, and it forces me to follow rules. I don't like rules, even if the rules are ones that I make for myself. And that lack of freedom can shut down my creativity if I'm not careful to remember to just trust myself. I usually cut freehand the elements that need to be added. Sometimes I use sharp scissors to cut smaller pieces, but my preferred method is to freehand cut with the rotary cutter. Freehand cutting looks more organic to me and closer to nature. Next, please. Being able to manipulate the fabric throughout the process allows me to use a wide variety of threads as the final layer. The stitching is not just to hold the layers together. The threads illustrate details, add depth, texture, and movement. A sense of movement is critical to scenes of water, land, or sky. I apply the threads by both hand and machine, using whichever method will give the desired result. Next, please. Morning rain illustrates much of what I've talked about today. Two fabrics, sky and water, comprise the base layer. The feel of moving water is created by adding many, and I do mean many, small slivers of fabrics to the base layer. The sunrise is painted primarily with colored pencil. The clouds are painted with a variety of translucent inks. The white surf is painted with acrylic paint, and wax pastel was added to give depth to the water. I used thread to quilt the sky with lines of rain and to create additional movement in the water. This is very similar to the process of creating night music, which was the first image and my entry to Musica. The difference is that the ground in night music was a single fabric with lots and lots of threads used to create the grasses, and only a small hint of water can be seen in the distance. Next, please. Art has always been a constant in my life, both as a refuge or solace when needed, as well as a way to make sense of the world around me. My mother taught me to notice the beauty in the smallest details of nature and how natural elements work together to create our place in the world. Reflections of the natural world continue to fascinate me as I walk with camera in hand, looking for the next story to be told.